He got up from the sofa and began pacing the room slowly from corner to corner for exercise, something he performed every day after lunch. "Leaving soon?" Peter Stepanovich asked from the armchair, having lighted a cigarette. "I came to sell my estate, actually, and am now entirely dependent on my manager. But it seems you came because an epidemic was expected there after the war?" No, it wasn't quite that," Mr. Karmazinov continued, scanning his words benignly and kicking his right leg out briskly, though only slightly each time he turned back from a corner. "Indeed," he grinned, not without venom, "I intend to live as long as possible. There is something in the Russian gentry that very quickly wears out, in all respects. But I want to wear out as late as possible, and am now moving abroad for good. The climate is better there, and they build in stone, and everything is stronger. Europe will last my lifetime, I think. What do you think?" "How should I know?" If their Babylon is indeed going to collapse, and great will be its fall, in which I fully agree with you, though I do think it will last my lifetime. Here in Russia, there is nothing to collapse, comparatively speaking. We won't have stones tumbling down. Everything will dissolve into mud. Holy Russia is least capable in all the world of resisting anything. Simple people still hang on somehow by the Russian God. But the Russian God, according to the latest reports, is rather unreliable and even barely managed to withstand the peasant reform. Anyway, he tottered badly. And what with the railroads and what with your... No, I don't believe in the Russian God at all. And in the European one? I don't believe in any. I've been slandered to the Russian youth. I've always sympathized with every movement of theirs. I was shown these local tracts. They're regarded with perplexity because everyone is frightened by the form, but everyone is nonetheless certain of their power, though they may not be aware of it. Everyone has long been falling, and everyone has long known that there's nothing to cling to. I'm convinced of the success of this mysterious propaganda, even owing to this alone, that Russia now is preeminently the place in the whole world where anything you like can happen without the least resistance. I understand only too well why the moneyed Russians have all been pouring abroad, more and more of them every year. It's simple instinct. If a ship is about to sink, the rats are the first to leave it. Holy Russia is a wooden country, a beggarly and dangerous one, a country of vainglorious beggars in its upper strata, while the vast majority live in huts on chicken legs. She'll be glad of any way out once it has been explained to her. The government alone still wants to resist, but it brandishes its cudgel in the dark and strikes its own. Everything is doomed and sentenced here. Russia, as she is, has no future. I've become a German and count it an honor. No, but you begin about the tracts. Tell me everything. How do you look at them? Everyone is afraid of them, which means they're powerful. They openly expose deceit and prove that we have nothing to cling to and nothing to lean on. They speak out while everyone is silent. The most winning thing about them, despite the form, is this hitherto unheard of boldness in looking truth straight in the face. This ability to look truth straight in the face belongs only to the Russian generation. No, in Europe they are still not so bold. Theirs is a kingdom of stone. They still have something to lean on. As far as I can see and am able to judge, the whole essence of the Russian revolutionary idea consists in a denial of honor. I like the way it is so boldly and fearlessly expressed. No, in Europe they still won't understand it, but here it is precisely what they will fall upon. For the Russian, honor is simply a superfluous burden, and it has always been a burden throughout his history. He can be all the sooner carried away by an open right to dishonor. I am of the old generation, and I confess still stand for honor, but only from habit. I simply like the old forms. Say it's from faint-heartedness. I do have to live my life out somehow. He suddenly paused. I talk and talk, however, he thought. And he says nothing and keeps an eye on me. He came so that I'd ask him a direct question, and I will ask it. Yulia Mikhailovna asked me to trick you somehow into telling what this surprise is that you're preparing for the ball the day after tomorrow, Peter Stepanovich said suddenly. Yes, it will indeed be a surprise. And I will indeed amaze, Karmazinov assumed a dignified air. But I won't tell you what the secret is. Peter Stepanovich did not insist. There's some Shatov here, the great writer inquired. And imagine, I haven't seen him? A very nice person, so? That's all. He's talking about something. Was he the one who slapped Stavrogin in the face? Yes. And what do you think of Stavrogin? I don't know, some sort of philanderer. Karmazinov had come to hate Stavrogin because he made a habit of taking no notice of him. This philanderer, he said, tittering, will probably be the first to be hung from a limb if what's preached in those tracts ever gets carried out. Maybe even sooner, Peter Stepanovich said suddenly. And so it should be, Karmazinov echoed, not laughing now, but somehow all too serious. You already said that once, and you know I told him so. What, you really told him? Karmazinov laughed again. He said, if it was hanging from a limb for him, a whipping would be enough for you. Only not an honorary one, but painful, the way they whip a peasant. Peter Stepanovich took his hat and got up from his place. Karmazinov held out both hands to him in farewell. And what, he peeped suddenly, in a honeyed little voice and with some special intonation, still holding his hands in his own. What if all that's being planned were set to be carried out, then when might it happen? How should I know? Peter Stepanovich replied somewhat rudely. They gazed intently into each other's eyes. Roughly? Approximately? Karmazinov peeped still more sweetly. You'll have time to sell the estate and time to clear out as well, Peter Stepanovich muttered, still more rudely. They both gazed at each other still more intently. There was a minute of silence. It will begin by the beginning of next May and be all over by the protection, Peter Stepanovich said suddenly. I sincerely thank you, Karmazinov said in a heartfelt voice, squeezing his hands. You'll have time, rat, to leave the ship, Peter Stepanovich thought as he came outside. Well, if even this all but statesmanly mind is inquiring so confidently about the day and the hour, and thanks one so respectfully for the information received, we cannot doubt ourselves after that. He grinned. And he's really not stupid. And just a migratory rat. That kind won't inform. He ran to Bogyavlinsky Street, to Filipov's house. Peter Stepanovich went first to Kirilov. He was alone as usual, and this time was doing exercises in the middle of the room. That is, he was standing with his legs apart, whirling his arms above his head in some special way. A ball was lying on the floor. The morning tea, already cold, had not been cleared from the table. Peter Stepanovich paused on the threshold for a minute. You take good care of your health, though, he said loudly and gaily, stepping into the room. What a nice ball, though. Look how it bounces. Is this also for exercise? Kirilov put his jacket on. Yes, also for health, he muttered dryly. Sit down. It's just for a minute. Still, I'll sit down. Health is health, but I've come to remind you of our agreement. Our time, sir, is, in a certain sense, approaching, he concluded with an awkward twist. What agreement? You ask what agreement? Peter Stepanovich got fluttered up, even frightened. It's not an agreement or a duty. I'm bound by nothing. There's a mistake on your part. Listen, what is this you're doing? Peter Stepanovich jumped all the way up. My will, which is? The same. I mean, how am I to understand that? You're still of the same mind? I am, only there is not and was not any agreement, and I'm bound by nothing. There was just my will, and now there's just my will. Kirilov was talking abruptly and squeamishly. I agree. Let it be your will as long as this will doesn't change. Peter Stepanovich settled down again with a satisfied air. You get angry at words. You've somehow become very angry lately. That's why I've avoided visiting. I was completely sure, by the way, that you wouldn't change. I dislike you very much. But you can be completely sure, though I do not recognize changes and non-changes. You know, though, Peter Stepanovich got fluttered up again. Why don't we talk it all over properly so as not to be confused? The matter requires precision, and you disconcert me terribly. Am I permitted to speak? Speak, Kirilov said curtly, looking into the corner. You resolved long ago to take your own life. I mean, you did have such an idea. Have I put it right? Is there any mistake? I have such an idea now, too. Wonderful. And note also that no one has forced you into it. To be sure, how stupidly you talk. All right, so I put it very stupidly. No doubt it would be very stupid to force such things. To go on, you were a member of the society under the old organization, and it was then that you confided it to one member of the society. I did not confide it, I simply told it. All right, it would be ridiculous to confide such a thing. What sort of confession is it? You simply told it. Wonderful. No, not wonderful, because you maunder so. I don't owe you any accounting, and you're not capable of understanding my thoughts. I want to take my own life because I have this thought, because I do not want the fear of death, because there's nothing here for you to know. What is it? Want some tea? It's cold. Let me get you another glass. Indeed, Peter Stepanovich had grabbed the teapot and was looking for an empty receptacle. Kirilov went to the cupboard and brought a clean glass. I just had lunch with Karmazinov, the visitor observed. Listened to him talk, got sweaty, then ran here and again got sweaty. I'm dying of thirst. Drink. Cold tea is good. Kirilov sat down on his chair again and again stared into the corner. A thought occurred in the society, he went on in the same voice, that I could be useful if I killed myself, and that one day when you got into some kind of mischief and they were looking for culprits, I could suddenly shoot myself and leave a letter that I had done it all so that they wouldn't suspect you for a whole year, or at least a few days. Even one day is precious. Very well, in that sense I was told to wait if I liked. I said I would, until I was told the time by the society, because it makes no difference to me. Yes, but remember, you pledged that when you wrote the dying letter, it would not be without me, and that on my arrival in Russia, you would be at my, well, in short, at my disposal. That is, for this occasion alone, of course. And in all others, you are certainly free, Peter Stepanovich added, almost courteously. I did not pledge. I consented because it makes no difference to me. Wonderful, wonderful. I don't have the slightest intention of dampening your pride, but this is not pride. But remember that 120 thalers were collected for your trip, so you took money. Not at all, Kirilov flared up. Not for that. One does not take money for that. Sometimes one does. You're lying. I declared in a letter from Petersburg, and in Petersburg I paid you 120 thalers, handed them to you, and they were sent there. Unless you kept them? Very well, very well. I'm not disputing anything. They were sent. The main thing is that you're of the same mind as before. The same. When you come and say it's time, I'll fulfill everything. What, very soon? Not so many days, but remember, we composed the note together that same night. Or day even. You say I must take the blame for the tracks? And something else. I won't take everything on myself. What won't you take? Peter Stepanovich got fluttered up again. Whatever I don't want to. Enough. I don't want to talk about it anymore. Peter Stepanovich restrained himself and changed the subject. Here's another thing, he warned. Will you join us this evening? It's Virginsky's name day. That's the pretext for the gathering. I don't want to. Do me a favor and come. You must. You must, to impress them with numbers and with your face. Your face is, well, in short, you have a fatal face. You find it so? Laughed Kirilov. Very well, I'll come. Only not for my face. When? Oh, earlyish, 6:30. And, you can come in, sit down, and not speak to anyone, however many there are. Only, don't forget to bring a pencil and paper with you. What for? It makes no difference to you anyway, and it's my special request. You'll just sit without speaking to anyone at all, listen, and from time to time make as if you're taking notes. Well, you can draw something. Nonsense, what for? Since it makes no difference to you. You do keep saying that it makes no difference to you. No, but what for? Because that member of our society, the inspector, got stuck in Moscow, and I announced to someone or other here that the inspector might visit us, so they'll think the inspector's you, and since you've been here for 3 weeks already, they'll be all the more surprised. Flim flam. You have no inspector in Moscow. Well, suppose I haven't. Devil take him. Is that any business of yours? And why is it so hard for you to do it? You are a member of the society. Tell them I'm the inspector. I'll sit and be silent, but the pencil and paper I don't want. But why? I don't want it. Peter Stepanovich became angry, even turned green, but again restrained himself, got up, and took his hat. Is he here? He suddenly said in a half whisper. Yes. Good. I'll have him out soon, don't worry. I don't worry. He just spends nights here. The old woman is in the hospital. The daughter-in-law died. For 2 days I've been alone. I showed him a place in the fence where a board can be removed. He gets in, no one sees him. I'll take him away soon. He says he has many places to spend the night. That's a lie. They're looking for him. And here so far it's inconspicuous. Do you really get to talking with him? Yes, all night. He says very bad things about you. I read him the Apocalypse at night with tea. He listened hard. Even very. All night. Ah, the devil. You'll convert him to the Christian faith. He's of Christian faith as it is. Don't worry, he'll use his knife. Whom do you want to put a knife into? No, that's not what I'm keeping him for. He's for something else. And does Shatov know about Fedka? I don't talk and never see Shatov. Is he angry or what? No, we're not angry. We just turn away. We spent too long lying together in America. I'll go to him now. As you like. Stavrogin and I may also come to you from there, somewhere around 10 o'clock. Come. I have to talk with him about an important... why don't you give me your ball? What do you need it for now? I, too... For exercise? I'll even pay money for it. Just take it. Peter Stepanovich put the ball in his back pocket. And I won't give you anything against Stavrogin, Kirillov muttered behind him, letting his visitor out. The latter looked at him in surprise, but did not respond. Kirillov's last words confused Peter Stepanovich greatly. He still had not had time to make sense of them, but going up the stairs to see Shatov, he tried to recompose his displeased look into a benign physiognomy. Shatov was at home and slightly ill. He was lying on his bed, though dressed. What bad luck, Peter Stepanovich cried out from the threshold. Are you seriously ill? The benign expression on his face suddenly vanished. Something spiteful flashed in his eyes. Not in the least, Shatov jumped up nervously. I'm not ill at all. My head is a little... He was even at a loss. The sudden appearance of such a visitor decidedly frightened him. The matter I've come on is such that it would be better not to be sick, Peter Stepanovich began quickly and as if peremptorily. Allow me to sit down. He sat down. And you sit back down on your cot. So, today some of our people are getting together at Virginsky's under the pretense of his birthday. There will be no other tinge, that's been seen to. I'll come with Nikolai Stavrogin. I certainly wouldn't drag you there, knowing your present way of thinking. I mean, in the sense of not wanting to torment you there, not because we think you'd inform. But it turns out that you'll have to go. You'll meet those people there with whom we will finally decide the manner of your leaving the society, and to whom you will hand over what you have. We'll do it inconspicuously. I'll lead you to some corner. There will be a lot of people, and there's no need for everyone to know. I confess I did have to exercise my tongue on your behalf, but now it seems that they, too, agree, with the understanding, of course, that you hand over the press and all the papers. Then you can go to the Four Winds." Shatov listened frowningly and spitefully. His recent nervous fright had left him altogether. "I do not acknowledge any obligation to give an accounting to the devil knows whom," he stated flatly. "No one can set me free." "Not quite so. A lot was entrusted to you. You had no right to break it off so directly. And finally, you never announced it clearly, so you led them into an ambiguous position. As soon as I came here, I announced it clearly in a letter." "No, not clearly," Peter Stepanovich disputed calmly. "For instance, I sent you The Shining Light to print here, and to keep the copy somewhere here with you until called for, and 2 tracts as well. You sent it all back with an ambiguous letter that meant nothing. I directly refused to print it." "Yes, but not directly. You wrote, 'am unable,' but did not explain for what reason." "Unable doesn't mean unwilling. It could be supposed that you were unable simply for material reasons. In fact, they took it that way and supposed that you still agreed to continue your connection with the society, and so they might have entrusted you with something again and thus have compromised themselves. Here, they say you simply wanted to deceive so that, having obtained important information, you could then denounce them. I defended you all I could and showed your 2-line written reply as a document in your favor, but I myself had to admit on rereading it that those 2 lines are vague and lead one into deception. And you've preserved this letter so carefully. That I've preserved it is nothing. I have it even now." "Who the devil cares?" Shatov cried out furiously. "Let your fools think I denounced them. It's not my business. I'd like to see what you can do to me." "You'd be marked out and hanged at the first success of the revolution. That's when you seize supreme power and subjugate Russia. Don't laugh. I repeat, I stood up for you. One way or another, I'd still advise you to come today. Why waste words because of some false pride? Isn't it better to part amicably, because you'll have to hand over the press and the type and the old papers in any case, so we can talk about that?" "I'll come," Shatov growled, hanging his head in thought. Peter Stepanovich studied him out of the corner of his eye from where he sat. "Will Stavrogin be there?" Shatov suddenly asked, raising his head. "Quite certainly." Again, they were silent for about a minute. Shatov was grinning squeamishly and irritably. "And that vile Shining Light of yours, which I didn't want to print here, did it get printed?" "It did. To persuade schoolboys that Herzen himself wrote it into your album?" "Herzen himself." Again, they were silent for about 3 minutes. Shatov finally rose from the bed. "Get out of here. From me. I don't want to sit with you." "I'm going," Peter Stepanovich said, even somehow gaily, rising at once. "Only one word. It seems Kirillov is all by himself in the wing now, without any maid. All by himself. Get out. I can't stay in the same room with you." "Well, aren't you in a fine state now?" Peter Stepanovich reflected gaily as he was going out. "And so you will be in the evening, and that's precisely how I want you now. I could wish for nothing better. Nothing better. The Russian God himself is helping out." He probably bustled about a good deal that day on various little errands, and it must have been with success, which reflected itself in the smug expression of his physiognomy, when in the evening at 6 o'clock sharp he appeared at Nikolai Vsevolodovich's. But he was not shown in to him at once. Mavriky Nikolaevich had just shut himself up with Nikolai Vsevolodovich in the study. This news instantly worried him. He sat down right by the door of the study to wait until the visitor came out. The conversation could be heard, but he was unable to catch the words. The visit did not last long. Soon there was noise. An unexpectedly loud and sharp voice was heard. Then the door opened and out came Mavriky Nikolaevich with a completely pale face. He did not notice Peter Stepanovich and quickly walked past. Peter Stepanovich at once ran into the study. I cannot avoid dwelling on this brief encounter between the two rivals. It was indeed brief, and although it seemed impossible under the circumstances, it still occurred. Here's what happened. Nikolai Stavrogin was dozing on the couch in his study after dinner when the footman Alexei came in and announced the unexpected visitor. Hearing his name, Stavrogin leaped up from the couch, unable to believe his servant. But soon a smile of haughty triumph twisted his lips, although the incredulous, surprised expression had not left his eyes. Drozdov, when he came in, was apparently struck by Stavrogin's smile and expression. At least he suddenly stopped in the middle of the room, unsure whether to advance or turn around and leave. While his visitor hesitated, Stavrogin managed to change his expression and step toward him with an unsmiling and astonished air. Drozdov did not take the hand that was offered him, but awkwardly took hold of a chair, pulled it toward him, and sat down without waiting to be invited. Stavrogin sat down on the couch, half facing and half sideways to his visitor, and waited. "If you can do it, marry Liza Tishin," Drozdov suddenly blurted out, and it was impossible to tell from his intonation whether this was a plea, a piece of advice, a concession, or a command. Stavrogin remained silent, but that apparently was all Drozdov had to say to him. He waited for a reply, his eyes fixed on Stavrogin. "If I'm not mistaken, and I'm certain I'm not, Miss Tishin is already engaged to you," Stavrogin said finally. "She is engaged to me," Drozdov confirmed firmly and clearly. "Have you quarreled then? Forgive me for asking, Drozdov." "No, she likes me and respects me, she says, and her opinion is the most precious thing in the world to me." "I'm sure of that. But you know very well that even on her wedding day, even in church at the altar, she would walk out on me and on everyone else if you called her." "Even from the altar?" "Yes, and after the altar." "Aren't you mistaken?" "No. Under her intense hatred for you, full-blooded and violent, I see the sparks of love at every moment, and of madness. Yes, the most sincere, full-blooded, violent love and madness. And on the contrary, under the love she has for me, which is also sincere, constant hatred smolders, a great, terrible hatred. Before I saw it for myself, I could never have imagined that such metamorphoses could exist. But still, I am surprised that you should come here like this to dispose of Liza's life, unless she's authorized you to do so." Maurice Drozdov frowned and for a minute lowered his head. "That's nothing but words on your part," he said suddenly. "They are vengeful and triumphant words, for I'm sure you can fill in what I haven't said. But is there really room for petty vanity here? Aren't you satisfied as it is? Do we really have to cross the T's and dot the I's? All right, I'll dot them for you. If you really need my utter humiliation, I have no right, and she couldn't have authorized me to come here. Miss Tishin knows nothing about it, and her fiancé has lost the last traces of sanity and should be locked up in a madhouse. And to top it all, he has come himself to report that fact to you. In the whole world, you're the only person who can make her happy. I can only make her unhappy. You pursue her and torment her, but for some reason, you don't want to marry her. If this is the lover's quarrel that you had abroad, if sacrificing me can help put an end to it, go ahead, sacrifice me. As things are, she's too unhappy and I can't stand it. My words constitute neither permission nor an order, so they can't possibly offend you. If you wanted to take my place beside her at the altar, you wouldn't need my permission, so there was no need for me to come to you on this crazy errand. Anyway, after what I've done now, marriage between her and me is out of the question. I couldn't possibly lead her to the altar after acting so basely. For being here and telling all these things to you, perhaps her most implacable enemy, Seems to be a villainy such as I'll never live down. Would you shoot yourself during the wedding service at the altar? No, later, much later. Why should I stain her bridal gown with my blood? But I might not even shoot myself at all, then or later. Perhaps you're just saying that to set my mind at rest. Your mind? What difference can a little blood more or less make to you? Drozdov turned very pale and his eyes flashed. For a minute or so, they lapsed into silence. Forgive me the questions I asked you, Stavrogin said, breaking the silence. I know I had no right to ask some of them. One question, however, I am fully entitled to put to you. Tell me, what makes you believe that I feel that way about Liza? I mean that seriously. You are so sure of it that you were able to come to me and risk making me this offer? What? Drozdov cried with a start. Didn't you care for her? Don't you still? Do you really not intend to do anything about it? As a general rule, I never discuss my feelings for a woman with a third person. In fact, with anyone other than the woman concerned. You must forgive me. I suppose it's an organic peculiarity of mine. However, I will tell you the truth about everything else. I am already married, so it would be impossible for me to marry or even, as you put it, to do something about it. Drozdov was so amazed that he fell back in his chair and for some time stared at Stavrogin speechlessly. I must say I never expected that, he muttered. That day you said you weren't married and I believed. He was growing paler and paler, turning completely ashen. Suddenly he slammed his fist on the table as hard as he could. If, after this admission, you don't leave Miss Titian alone, and if she's unhappy through any fault of yours, I'll kill you with a stick like a stray dog and leave you to rot in a ditch. He leaped up and rushed out of the room. Peter, who darted in as soon as Drozdov was out of the way, found Stavrogin in a different mood from what he had expected. Ah, it's you, Stavrogin said, laughing loudly. Laughing apparently at the figure of Peter, who appeared to have sprung up out of nowhere, obviously breathless with curiosity. Were you eavesdropping? Wait, what have you come about? Ah, yes, I remember we have to go and meet our friends. Let's go. There's nothing I'd love better just now. A very good idea of yours. Stavrogin took his hat, and the two men immediately left the house. So the mere fact that you're about to meet our friends makes you laugh? Peter rattled off cheerfully, trying to keep level with his companion on the brick sidewalk, although he was often forced to step down into the mud, because Stavrogin apparently didn't even notice that by walking in the middle, he was occupying the entire sidewalk. It doesn't make me laugh at all, Stavrogin answered loudly and cheerfully. As a matter of fact, I am convinced that they're a most solemn crowd. Dismal morons, as you once described them. Well, there's nothing funnier than certain dismal morons. You mean Maurice Drozdov, don't you? I bet he came to concede his fiancée to you. Am I right? I kind of advised him to do that. Indirectly, of course, as you can well imagine. Anyway, if he doesn't turn her over to us on his own, we'll take her from him ourselves, right? Peter, of course, knew what he was risking in getting himself involved in such complications, but then when he was excited, he was prepared to risk anything rather than remain in ignorance. Stavrogin just laughed. So you still intend to help me? He asked. If you call on me, but there's a best way of achieving things, you know. I know your way. No, you don't really. It's still a secret, but remember, secrets cost money. I know how much it costs, too, Stavrogin growled under his breath, but then controlled himself and fell silent. How much? What did you say? Peter became alarmed. I said to hell with you and your secrets. You'd better tell me whom you'll have there. I know we're going to a birthday party, but I want to know who will actually be there. Oh, the whole damn lot of them, even Kirilov. Are all of them members of cells? God, you're really in a hurry. We have yet to form one proper cell around here. How did you manage to distribute so many leaflets then? Where we're going now, there will only be 4 cell members. The others are spying on one another in expectation and vying with each other and coming to me with information. Very reliable people. They are material that still needs to be organized and sorted out, but you wrote the charter yourself, so I don't suppose there's any need to explain these things to you. What is it then? Is it hard going? Any snags? It's going better than it has any right to. Let me make you laugh. The first thing to produce a great effect is a dress uniform. There's nothing stronger than uniforms. So I'm deliberately inventing ranks and functions. I now have general secretaries, secret emissaries, treasurers, chairmen, registrars, and their deputies. It's all taking very well. It's been a great success. The second thing, of course, is sentimental claptrap. As you know, in this country, socialism mostly propagates itself through sentimentality. But in that lies trouble too, because we're bound to stumble against second lieutenants who bite and the like. Then come the unmitigated crooks. They certainly are very nice people and are often a great asset to the movement, but they need constant supervision, and that takes up a lot of our time. And finally, the main force, the cement, holding the whole structure together, is shame about their own personal opinions. Yes, that's a real force. And who worked on it? Who managed to leave them completely blank without a single one of their personal opinions left? Now they're ashamed of anything they may think for themselves. But if it's all as you say, why do you drive yourself so hard? Why, if a fellow's just lying around gaping at everything, you can't help grabbing him. Don't you really believe that we can succeed? I suppose you do have faith, but the trouble with you is that you don't want it badly enough. Yes, we can succeed using fellows just like that, I assure you. They'll jump into water and even into fire if I reproach them simply for not being really liberal. Fools reproach me for having deceived everyone here with talk about a central committee and innumerable chains of command. You yourself once took me to task for it, but I don't think it's a swindle. Why, the central committee is you and me, and we'll soon have as many chains of command and branches and cells as we wish. But what human muck! That's the material we need. We'll make use of them. We'll make use of them, all right. And what about me? Do you still need me? You're the leader, the force. I'm only at your side, a sort of secretary. We'll board our ship with oars of oak and sails of silk. Board our ship with oars of oak and sails of silk, and at the helm, fair Liza, or however the song goes. You're stuck, Stavrogin roared with laughter. Let me tell you a better fairy tale. Here you are, going around calculating something on your fingers and forming cells from some unknown forces. That's all nothing but bureaucracy and sentimentality, nothing but good cement. There's something better than that. Convince any 4 members of a cell to kill the 5th, assuring them that he's about to inform on them, and lo and behold, they'll be linked to you forever by the blood spilled. They'll become your slaves and won't dare ask you for accounts or rise against you. What do you say? Peter thought, I'll make you eat those words, and no later than tonight. You're going too far after all. That was what Peter was thinking, or at least something along those lines, as they arrived at Virginsky's house. I suppose you're going to try and pass me off as some member of the movement from abroad, some inspector from the International, or something like that, Stavrogin asked suddenly. No, you won't be an inspector. You'll be a founding member from abroad who was in on the most important secrets. That's your role. I suppose you'll make a speech? Where did you get that idea? Stavrogin was so surprised that he stopped by a lamppost. Peter met his stare calmly and arrogantly. Stavrogin spat and walked on. But you will speak, won't you? He suddenly asked Peter. No, I guess I'd rather listen to you. Damn you, you've really given me a good idea. What? Peter said, starting with alarm. I think, after all, I will make a speech there. And after that, I'll give you a beating. And believe me, it'll be a good one. Ah, by the way, earlier today I told Karmazanov that you had said he ought to be flogged, and flogged painfully, the way a peasant is flogged. But I never said that. Never mind that. Se non è vero. Well, thanks anyway, my sincere thanks. Shall I tell you what Karmazanov told me? He said that essentially our teaching is the denial of honor, and that the easiest way to attract the Russian man is to promise him the right of dishonor. Excellent words. Golden words, Stavrogin said. He hits the nail right on the head. The right of dishonor. They'll all come rushing to us, and there'll be none left on the other side. But tell me the truth, Verkovensky. You're working for the secret police, aren't you? If you really thought so, you wouldn't have asked me. No, for the moment, I'm not from the secret police, but that's enough for now. We've arrived. Come. Put on an appropriate expression, Stavrogin. I always do when I appear among them. Try to look as grim as possible. That's all there is to it. Nothing else is required. It's really very simple.